main thing was that just after the Second World War, Britain imported cheap, unskilled labour to replace all the men who'd been, and all the families that had been devastated after the Second World War. The country was on its knees. We had nothing. So they decided that it needed a national health service. And the instigator of that was a guy called Beveridge. And they introduced the social services at the same time. Now, in 1947, it was Clement Attlee who then refined and defined how all this was going to work, and they had to pay for it somehow. So he increased taxes to an unprecedented amount of, I believe it was 47% or more. Now that's equivalent to what we have now, and that was the last time it was ever seen was back in 1947. Okay, so what that meant for local authorities was that they had to raise their own money. Nobody had any money, so there was a difficulty there. So any money they did get, they had to claim it from the central government. And the way that they did that was to take children away from families, put them into a children's home, and then claim money back from the government to look after those children. And that worked exceptionally well. And they'd also claim money for adoption agencies, foster parents, all kinds of childcare, everything to do with childcare. They had to claim money back from the government, and that worked quite well. But they were taking children away from innocent parents, which built up resentment, and it's similar to the situation that we have now. In the 1980s, the government wanted to shut down the trade unions. So the first thing they did was to destroy or disable all the manufacturing industries like the car industries, etc. The next thing they did was to shut down the mines. So the communities broke apart, families broke apart, the actual cost of living went sky high. It was really difficult to live because of the amount of money that was drained away from the economy. Well, that was successful from their point of view, but the most devastating blow was to privatise most of the NHS and most of the social services. So the local authorities have to find their own money. So what that actually meant in real terms was that people who are in your family court case and social care proceedings, because everything is privatised, they can buy shares in children's homes, fostering agencies, adoption agencies, and if they're in a family court system, they want as many children as possible to go into social care to fill up any vacancies they have in the fostering homes, in the adoption agencies, and in their children's homes. Now the most lucrative, the best shares, most of the shares are in children's services and in adoption agencies, because since the development of stem cell surgery, DNA, etc., because of these things, DNA, British DNA in particular, is very valuable abroad. So when they sell a child abroad, they're going to get hundreds of thousands of pounds. Now keep in mind there's 85,000 go into social care. These are children that go into social care each year. What it boils down to in the end is that most of the people you're looking at in a family court, and when you go to a social services office, most of the people you're talking to have shares in adoption agencies making millions, even billions. According to our calculations, we got to 17 billion that's being made from taking children away from the innocent families and selling them through adoption agencies. We're talking about thousands and thousands of disappearing children, and nobody seems to know where they are. The only hope we have is possibly in a few years' time, or it's getting closer every year obviously, but through the DNA you may be able to trace. You won't be able to trace your own DNA with these children to find out where they finished up. But if you look at your close relatives and if you look at their ancestry, you may find a link going back to somewhere abroad. That's possibly where your child has gone. But in the meantime, until somebody with the wherewithal to investigate this and stop paying people to get children away from their home, the loving, caring, devoted families and friends and neighbours. Because 95% of all child abuse, possibly more, is perpetrated by unrelated adults. People should not profit from child abuse.